Well, hello and welcome. I'm Paul Richard, your host for the podcast this morning. We are the Leverage Podcast, and I have a dear friend on with us today, Stephen Burton. Amazing. We've been friends for almost 20 years, which I can't believe it's been that long. But Stephen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about a couple different things with you. And we're going to talk about waterproof solutions. When I met you, you had that company, and now Foundation Rescue Training Center, and you're based in St. Louis. So welcome to the program, Stephen.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. You and I go way back, and I'm proud.
We do. You know, I remember some of our first interactions. I was a new real estate agent with Remax in St. Louis, and just getting my wheels under me. I'd come out of the electrical industry and doing, design and build and project management and those things. And, I felt an instant connection with you when we first went into our first house and looked at the floor was cracked and there was water coming out of different places. And it was my first experience in St. Louis because I've sold houses in 3 different markets now. I've sold in Omaha, Nebraska, St. Louis, and now here in the Branson, Springfield area. And, the soils are so different in the different areas. And what I learned from you in many ways, and I also had another gentleman there that was a structural engineer that was my inspector, that the red clay soil that we dealt with so much and you deal with so much in St. Louis,
Yeah.
is you can throw in a brand new foundation and that thing's going to crack on you. It's just and like where I live now, it's all rock, and you can put a foundation in, it's not going to crack because all the water's draining away with the rock here at Table Rock Lake. That type of thing. Not that we don't have foundation issues, but there's those things going on. So, and I learned so much from you. So let's go back to the time of that. And I love just conversation with you and this, and we could go on for hours, but I'd love to talk about waterproof solutions. And will you take us back to how you got into that business and your passion for that?
Well, it was by accident. It's like anyone else. When do you need a lawyer? Is when you're in trouble. So I found myself, I was raised in St. Anne pretty modestly, 6 of us in a 2-bedroom house with no basement, no crawl space. So that meant Mom and Dad had a bedroom, Laura and Lisa had a bedroom, and Keith and I had the hallway. There was a little sewing thing, didn't even have a back door. Now, I'm not trying to play woe is me. I'm absolutely quite proud of my upbringing. I'm proud of all of that because you don't have a lot. You learn how to deal with what you have. But I longed for a basement. Longed for one. I thought they were the coolest thing ever, So when I moved back to St. Louis, I rented a basement. And my stuff all got wet. And I was heartbroken. And I didn't understand it. And I was a concrete guy. Here I have an applied missile science degree and a minor in cement and concrete. And I'm like, why is this happening? But I'm just a kid. I'm in my early 30s. I don't know really what this is about. So I called these guys up to my house, and they're all but my age now. I'm going to be 100 years old pretty soon, and they were all coming in, old guys, and I could tell they didn't know what they were doing. They were selling. I worked at Vic Tanny when I was younger. You could have been black and had no legs, and I would have sold you tanning and tennis. I was awful. It was because when you sell the membership, don't you want to get something for it? So I was all about me manipulating. So let's understand who I am first. When you're born poor and a scrapper, you have a tendency to learn the dark side first. God was in me from Jump Street. I used to tell people when I was younger, well, if I was good, I'd sell God. Well, you don't sell God. But see, that was my mindset.
Sure.
Something that was good, you sold it or bought it. I just, that's how the world worked for me. So at any rate, here we go. And I start to realize I've just left. So I've lost my career in Texas. I've got all this accolades. I've done all so well, but I'm coming back home a nobody. I'm coming back home a bad guy. I'm coming back home a guy with 4 kids that he's got to pay for, no job. It was stressful. Wound up in the dollar store world, and I was fixing things in that world, trying to help them with their inventory because I was raised in retail, and I thought that's not where I need to be. So at the end of the day, what do I wind up doing? I wind up going to work in cable. I'm in a guy's house. His phone goes off. He's talking about waterproofing. I'm like, I know about that. And the next thing you know, I'm in the business. So I worked for a couple of small franchises in a call lunch buckets, and I was disgusted by what I saw. Just heartbroken, thought, I got to get out of this industry or I'm going to get tagged with it. When I was young, if you were a tin man, if you were the siding guys, you were a bad guy. There was like movies about it because they just lay people away with this. So I saw us that reminiscing of what this is, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to be known as that. So I went to work for W.R. Grace and Liquid Plastics and Sika, and I learned fluid applied, full building envelope, and I dove in the chemistry of concrete, and I absolutely loved it. I thought, wow. This is taking all of my art, a drawing ability, and being able to apply it in real time. I was so excited. Learned all of these hard things that you can do in the commercial world, and then all of a sudden I'm in this industry. I'm actually practicing now in the residential side, and no one's wanting to say the emperor's naked. I'm like, where are the rules? Wait, this town's doing this, and that town does that, and this one doesn't say anything, and this inspector is inspecting a repair that doesn't work? And he's inspecting it? What? Then I found out, oh, the home inspector doesn't take a test? Foundation guy doesn't take a test? What? And everybody just kind of, shh. I did the same thing. I was part of the problem for, 10, 15 years. I just kind of operated. And you know why? I was part of that. I know how to fix that. I was Mr. Symptom. Mr. Chase the Symptom. I was that guy. You had a wall crack, I'd sell it to you on the phone. I promise I did it. I'm not proud of these things, but they make you who you are. You go back to a house you misdiagnosed because you were in a hurry. You go back to a house where you missed the garage, they bought the house, and the garage needs $12,000 in peering. But you weren't asked to come look at that. Maybe you knew the realtor really well, and you subconsciously didn't want to hurt the situation. You didn't have enough in you to know that right is right and wrong is wrong, and there's a way to talk about it without alienating anybody. But that's not really where we're at. We're a little more self-driven, right? We're a little bit more, well, I got to eat, and this is about me, and the world's about me, and we'll deal with other people after I deal with me. And that's kind of how I was. And so I had a love for things, but I had a love for me more. But you know what the truth was? I wasn't treating myself properly. And I had an alcohol problem. And the problem was there wasn't enough alcohol when I decided to drink it. When it was evening time, I didn't wake up drinking it. No. But, when your wife's bartender and runs a restaurant, and that's how I met her 25 years ago, it was kind of what I did for a while. And I started to realize I was king of the idiots. Now, there's nothing wrong with drinking. I took it to a level that shouldn't have happened. I took it to a level of waste. I took it to a level of despair. I took it to a level of leading people down bad paths. So I was like, what am I supposed to do with that now? Thank you. I'm supposed to do my best. So my best now is, okay, I have to admit my mistakes, talk about them every day, because that's our new chance to move forward. It's like, wow, that's so great that that's over with. Or, I just did a review for somebody. I went to their house and she was not happy. She wanted more of a report. And I thought, you know what? I don't like hearing that, but she's right. Abigail's right. I need to be giving them more than they expected. I need to give them full details on how the fluid applied porch should get put on so they don't have that porch top get damaged to the point that it has to be replaced. I can't stop with the initials. So much as I didn't like to hear that today, that's what Gabby and we developed a brand new report that's based around more information. So if you can take those punch to the chiclets as hard as you can, there's something good in there. Look for it. You're being refined. If something bad's happening, what now? When I'm in the midst of something and I get that feeling of, which is either rage, like I'm going to fight, or I'm at arms, or how could you have said that? Now I know it's a trigger. It's time to be quiet. It's time to absorb. It's time to listen, and it's time to reflect. So that's the neat thing about being a grandpa, is that you get to pass on what you've learned. I finally know a little bit about something. The fact that I'm being called an expert in this industry saddens me greatly. But what I do know is there's a lot of good people that know a lot of things. And if we all lock arms together, our common knowledge, our common sense is so much broader. And we can walk much more comfortably. It's like trying to use AI. I have to spend as much time fixing Claude as I do giving Claude. So you have to have
right.
you before you can ever work on it. And so that's the beautiful thing about teaching something now is I'm actually going to be so much better at this than I was while I actually did it. Sad, but I know more now teaching about gutters. For instance, I really never knew capacity until I started thinking about I'm going to be sitting down with intellectuals that are going to want to throw darts at my head. So a 4-inch gutter holds 0.8 gallons, a 5-inch gutter holds 1.2 gallons, and 6-inch gutter holds 2 gallons a foot. These are important things. That gutter's got 1 inch of shingle going into it, so we got to have more than 3 inches. We got to have more, so we got to catch it because of the velocity of the rain in the roof pit. No one talks about that. The roofing industry needs to get off their can and get rid of the 4-inch rolls of steel. I think they're sold them when they first get into it because they don't know any better, and then they got to get rid of the product. I don't understand otherwise. And you know what 5-inch gutter is? Cheap. You're being cheap. That is not the place to be frugal. No, it is not. Take your gutters down if you don't want gutters. Buying that metal guard, those are for flat roofs. Understand, that's for that's so the water will wick in and they don't fill those scuppers up and water up with crap. So there's a right use for everything, but we don't bring it to the house every time. Like these pop-up emitters, there's no place for them in our industry. Zero place. You go to daylight or you go to drywall. So there was all these things I had to learn. I got to a place where I started applying it, and then people started saying, Stephen, well, that's your way. A guy from St. Ann, Missouri, dad spray painted airplanes and drove a school bus. Mom didn't work, and it's my way? Yeah, because of that silver spoon, that background I have, no. Been in the trenches. You know how many girls and men I've seen crying in their basement because they don't know what to do? They bought something that was finished and it was a lie. Now they're trapped. COVID just smashed the living snot out of people so bad. Hurt me so bad that in 21 I started Foundation Rescue. But I realized, and I love going into houses still, so that's why we have two aspects of that business. And I still help Waterproof Solutions. It's my baby. I always want them to do well. But at the end of the day, you couldn't be a master to two things. So I found myself constantly in the world of, we got to make change here. And I was trying to help people figure out other companies how to do work. And when I'd get busy, I'd throw some work to a couple of them. I'd talk to them, befriend them. What I want them to do is to learn to take some of the menu items off. You don't go to Poor Richard's to get biscuits and gravy. You go there to get wings, right? So we need to be understanding that some of our products do not compete. When I worked for W.R. Grace, as much as they didn't like it, some of their products didn't compete super good when we were at a parking garage or a hospital we were performing. So you either had something that was as good or better, and you had to have an equivalent and show it. Well, in our industry, all you have to say is patented process, proprietary repair, have a celebrity endorse it, and you're off and running. And that's a tragedy. Homes are getting broken for it. And the reason being is folks are not considering, and even the people, the elect, are not considering how a house is built. And that's why Foundation Rescue is so important for the realtor, for the inspector, for the homeowner, for the contractor. This class is for everybody. It is 16 weeks that I think anyone that's going to be in our industry should have to take it. That's how I feel. It's got that much in. You should know if you're selling a house how it's built, how it breaks. Maybe not initially, but I've seen brokers tell their people, don't you become a specialist in that. Yeah, that's that's like the guy that says, don't be a jack of all trades and be a master of none. Well, that's only the front end of that. It's better to be a master of many things than just one. So that's just garbage to say that and to endorse that. You know what that does is that just green lights their ticket to sell. Sell what you got, sell it hard, and sell it fast. Well, you're going to be treated that same way. That's how these things work. So I personally would rather gift somebody, because you know what? And here's the big picture. You're the one that gets the gift. The giver gets the gift, the true gift. Now the receiver obviously feels like they got some. That's great. That's when everybody wins. But when you put yourself in front of the client, and let's talk about client and customer, Paul. I know you don't consider them customers because you don't just sell them products. You give them information, and people need to define and understand the difference between a customer and a client. vast difference. And I like to be a customer. I like buying stuff. I am a customer. I buy stuff. I don't hold the company responsible for my idiot purchases sometimes, because that's just on me. And that's what judges will say. I'm an expert witness in court. I get paid very well to just basically be Captain Obvious. But no one knows the obvious, right? They don't want to. It's kind of like not wanting to look at the truth.
You know, I learned something recently, if I could mention this. Well, recently, I say in the last couple of years. So being with Keller Williams, we went to through one of their books called The One Thing. And one of the co-authors are Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And one of the principles in there, I was in one of Jay's classes in Texas, and he said, you know, there's this thing called the curse of knowledge. And I go, what is that? What is that? What is that? And he goes, and he
I
goes,
can already feel it.
he said, we think that everybody else knows what we know. And so we make an assumption that when we present it, it's going to be obvious to them, right? You know, and it's not that way, right? Because either, and a lot of times I teach this is, you know, God gives you a gift to see things that other people can't see. And it may be in your industry or spiritually or whatever it is. And so you have to kind of morph into, you know, I call it a chameleon type thing. When I learned about personalities and different personality types, and that is, you have to almost morph yourself into that position and say, okay, I'm going to take myself from facing you and I'm going to move alongside you, and let me kind of show you what's going on here and expose the truth.
That's right.
Right. And then, you know, I'm not trying to bring you to some solution that I've already fabricated in my mind, which is what you're talking about, the sales thing. And then I'm coming alongside you. You need to feel comfortable walking this path, you know, the yellow brick road towards Oz, right here, to understand what's going on, so to speak, and that kind of thing. And, you know, I also just, oh my gosh, this brings up so many things. I read a book, a friend of mine said, hey, read this book called Thou Shalt Prosper. Have you seen that?
Oh.
It's by the Rabbi Daniel Lapin, and he travels with Dave Ramsey, and he's kind of in that realm of helping teach. And he comes from Old Testament and says, why are the Jewish people so prosperous? You know, that it's boggling some people's mind. He talks about the Old Testament principles of wealth and that, and which is fascinating. But the one thing I was thinking about was, he said, you know, when we face each other, like if we're in a Chamber of Commerce meeting or something, and I've got my name badge, and I'm like, hey, look at me. I do this. Do you know anybody that needs this? And then, but then when we go to a different meeting, like I'm thinking of Rotary, excuse me, like Rotary, where we're all trying to stamp out a disease, and we come alongside each other, and I just happen to look over and go, hey, what do you do for a living? You know, but we're marching towards a goal that's not about promoting myself, right? And that's what I hear those things in, as you're sharing this. I you know, there's so much to unpack about what you just said, but I see those principles in your world and in your life, and you learned them through hard knocks, and I learned them through hard knocks and making bad decisions and all those things. But now we realize that, oh yeah, that is my gifting. That is where I'm coming from. And one other thing I was thinking about is I took a training in 1985 in Dana Point, California, and the guy said there's a difference between selling and a difference between buying, right? And so if I walk into a car dealership and I say, you know, I came in here for a Toyota Grand Highlander and I want to buy a white one, that one right there. Okay, I've made a buying decision. But then the salesman goes, you know what? We just got this new used Jeep Grand Cherokee it's a really good deal. That situation turned from a buying decision that I already made into this guy trying to sell me on this Jeep, right? And now my mind goes through a different process. Goes, who's this guy? Can I trust him? Who's his company? Are Jeeps any good? You know, so you go through this.
Can I do anything right now?
Process. Yeah, exactly. So when, you know, and so when you're talking about dealing with a client, you really are in the position of, they don't know. A lot of times they're in crisis, and that's another thing.
Yes.
Is they
Yes.
don't know. It's like a mechanic trying to explain what's going on under the hood to somebody that's never even done anything but driven a car, and you could tell them anything and they believe it. And so those things. So you brought up that point. It's so fantastic. Is that I see you coming alongside people, helping them understand, in the waterproof solutions scenario, and saying, look, this is, I've taken the whole picture into account, and we may be able to solve part of it by rerouting the water away from the foundation and take care of some of those things. And we can do a stair-step process and see, where does that take us, right? And water doesn't come in normally unless it's raining, right? So we have to wait till the next big gusher to see what happens. But, let's take this solution first and then let's walk through it, rather than saying, well, we need to cut the entire foundation out and put in this sump pump and do this whole thing and spend $7,000 on this. And the people are going, what? That's my entire life savings right there, right? So I love your approach. And I think if we took that approach in any industry, it doesn't matter. And they've got to decide the outcome. We're presenting the thoughts, the ideas, the professional thing that we know, and then they've got to make a decision as to what they want to do.
Yeah,
and we just stand there and go,
It's as good as the questions we ask them at that point.
Yeah.
Well, we can take that same, this as well as anyone, is we can take the same broken house, whatever's wrong with it, doesn't matter. It can be major or minor, it doesn't matter. And then put 3 different buyers in it, or possibly people just living in it. We don't always have to be buying or selling, but let's just use it as a buyer. You're either buying, sitting, or selling, right? Well, if you're sitting, it may be that you're comfortable, you're an age, and this is where you want to be. And economics kind of dictates a lot about what you might want to do and what you're actually going to do. So what we would do for that person might be very different than what we would do for the 25-year-old that would be in that house that's upwardly mobile and has all these ideas of a family and what they're going to do. Is that house something that's going to continue to be around? Is it going to be absorbed in a bigger situation? Is it a house that should be knocked down? Is it a house that's an add-on? Is it there's so many things. Is there heirs to the property? So if we're really being good stewards of our assets' money, which is the person, again, when I speak of the asset, Webster's got it wrong. They act like it's a physical thing. My goodness, if that person in the house isn't the asset, we've got it wrong out of the start. So let's understand, we're advocates, they're assets, we're to be helping them get where they need to be. That's how we prosper. That's where our gift gets to come from, whether it's in payment or however it may be. So many times, I was blessed by showing them, and I had a wall of letters from people thanking me that they never actually had to have the foundation work done because they managed their hardscape or their landscape.
Yes.
It's downspouts, gutters, hardscape, landscape. Once you've managed the whys, you have something happening because your house is built for compression. That's down, not tension. So that's why we want to make sure that this beautiful thing that was built, that's why some of these houses that have no gutters on them at all are still standing, because they had proper drainage. There was nothing occurring. The backfill was minor. It might have been, and it could stand. That's why the argument's there that you'll see the builders say, well, it's a bunch of garbage because this and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's just bad math. So, and plus, more times than not, we're trying to be preventative, not trying to just do the minimum, So finding out the client, figuring out what's best for them, then you write an operation for them, which we're going to start with this. We find them a vendor. We'll go to this is your next thing you're going to do, and then give them their list. They may make it to the end, they may not, but at least they're on a track. They can afford it. They understand what they're doing. They're good stewards. If they have to sell in the meantime, they can show their plan to the next person. This was the path we were on. We were shown by FRTC. Waterproof Solutions initially did this. We were going to, but we never got to it. We're selling the house. So this is where we're at. What a lovely situation for the realtors and the inspectors to all be able to go, good. Let's be up front. Let's treat people the way we want to be treated. And that starts with us. They don't have anybody. We have to realize our homeowners are a bit left to fend for themselves. And so let's not be mean about that. Let's just teach them. Let's give them a place to go find their little Bible. Unlike the real Bible that can't be changed, those beautiful 66 books. You know, we've started with a little terms. I've got 800 words in here just from our industry. They're not shared, like cove. Paul, most people have no idea what cove means. Well, you and I both know that that's where the floor and the wall comes together in a basement floor. And if it leaks there, that can't be glued. And a lot of times when systems are put in, we'll see a piece of plastic out of the floor, which is a cove plate. So
yes.
Gosh, I've been in homes where I've mentioned it a couple times, and being a poker player, I can read that they didn't pick up on what I said. Which brings me back to your Keller Williams upbringing, which brought me to Antiogram. I was taught all that through Keller Williams, through your advice, and so I learn and teach that in my first week. It's important to know who our personalities are, so that we can
right.
them and bridge that gap. So there's so many neat pieces that we have in our life, all the jobs that we've had that we bring to the table that we can, help somebody, if that's what our goal is. And the Great Commission is to make sure we get the word out. So the best thing to do is do that with your work. Make sure that your walk shines, so people are going to be curious about what you're doing and how that's going down. So with the school, we would really like to bring boots on the ground, get people educated as to be in the business. So let's make some of these smaller companies take care of their own waterproofing. There's no reason to be calling a company out to be doing some of these things if you can certify the work. My goodness, no one's doing that anyway. So you'll have something that's videoed. There's no argument going to be with anybody, because that's what we know to do. And they've made this simplistic and it's simple. So they've watered it down so much and nobody quite knows what to do. Well, that's so sad. We're changing that. It's not going to be easy, and it hasn't been, but it's been fun, and it's been hard, but I like it. When all of a sudden I realized the emperor's naked, that Missouri doesn't have a code. I'm a part of MACE now, Missouri Association of Code Enforcement, and I'll be speaking August 31st at the lake, at Camden and on the lake, to inspectors. And it's important that we all get on the same page with, there really are only so many foundations.
Yeah.
And there really are only so many ways to go about this. Why don't we record this? Why don't we put this in a book? Why don't we then... We can make changes. Let's just make sure it's not proprietary. Let's not make sure that it's just to benefit someone, but it's to benefit all. Then we can make those changes. But we haven't had that many significant breakthroughs in the foundation repair business. We haven't had any breakthroughs that's being taken on daily in the building of homes. Now, I'm not going to tell you that there's not folks out there doing some cool stuff. That's man in America, and that's the world. So good, but that's not your average tract home. That's not your average. So now let's talk about how we move forward just quickly. I sat in a meeting with the chamber, and they were talking to us about the next 25 years. St. Louis wants less roads, less houses, less big land, more communal living, more. That's where they're headed. It's not going to sustain the growth that it's on.
No.
And I'm not saying they're wrong, but that we better understand where we're at. And if you don't know who the idiot at the poker table is, it might be you. So as I sat there thinking, and this young man that's talking about it is from Oklahoma, so he, I don't even think he knew who he was talking to and how he's saying, because the whole room was just looking at him like, we don't like to hear that, Now, I didn't in the middle of the meeting pop his bubble, but I did come up to him and say, so what do we do with all these houses that are getting smashed up and repaired wrong? And now from what used to be you and I, when we first started, if a house cost $5,000 or $6,000, that was a big repair. That was a bummer.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, 15, 10? Ooh, now it's 25, 50. I've done $80,000 jobs, and I wasn't high bid. I was like, but the homes are worth so much now, and there's so much to be done, and they get so bad. So when you let something go, it's like dun dun dun. And these houses don't fall down, Paul. The walls don't fall down, even on the bad ones. Occasionally you get one. That's very rare. Very rare. 35 years, I've seen a few. Okay, so let's just be honest about that. That's another thing, too. Nobody can pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Nobody can tell me that doesn't work or that works. Bull! No, it does not.
Yeah.
And they don't ever push back, because it's all just bully garbage, usually. Because if we can get down to the bottom of it, I'll win them over, because it's the truth. I just happen to know the truth. And if I got it wrong, then let me get fixed. I don't care about being right. It's about getting it right. If I got it wrong, I shout it, because it makes me angry that I've been tricked. So finding the rules, establishing them. Well, what do? You're already in a house. It's great that we're teaching new guys and we're going to lead up people in the industry. And I already have landscaping companies that want to bring that onto their. Why are you letting somebody else have the inside of the house when you already take care of the outside? Plus, let me show you how to take care of the outside properly. Let's get the whole thing done right. Don't, we're calling this person for that and that person for this. Well, one-stop shopping is better if you're good at what you're doing. And we're not talking about you have to learn rocket science. And I can say that having been in the missile industry. So this isn't that difficult. We're not setting up a guidance system. No. This is the same stuff every day. It's Groundhog Day for me. I feel like Bill Murray. I'm not even kidding. And it's so staying fresh with it, to your point, making sure I don't talk over someone's head about tensile strength. What did he say? Tensile strength, 10%. What?
Yeah.
So we have to be careful when we start explaining why things are happening. You don't want to be too lunch bucket. Well, if your gutters are too heavy, they're just going to dump on the house and break it. Well, that's the short version, but it doesn't give us the why. It doesn't explain to us that the soil around the house is going to be disturbed for 250 years. That's like, what? That house is 100 years old. So what? Still garbage around it. And it's going to be garbage for 250 years till it settles out. I make up the rules. If you don't like them, go talk to whoever the physics guys are. That's why we have rules, and that's why there's standards, and that's why some of these repairs that I see are so bad. It's like they're not even looking. They're not even talking about it. You don't put plastic over any walls. It's been nothing but a tragedy for people, and yet it's come back with a vengeance. So a lot of these cockamamie, gimmicky, they've realized the industry can make you rich really quick. Even if you're bad, because you can just fold up shop and there's no ramifications for you. You just get to be done. I chose to sell stain. Well, I dropped the mic at a very high rating, highest I could do, best I could do, because I was blessed, was to say, okay, with that body of work that can never be changed, can never be hurt, I can now say you can trust because of my body of work, and then lean into me so that if you have a question or if you're concerned, just ask truthful questions, good, straight, hard ones, and we'll get the answers. But these homes, there's really, when you break it down, downspouts, gutters, it's about landscape, hardscape, and we're done. So let's just have this book that we can take this class, understand what we're doing, and be better at being helpers for our advocates. But the homeowners who are already there, that's where I want to help too. And that's why I want to be relevant in the homes, where I can be taking these videos and showing what's happening and helping these people that are in a bind by having my inspection service. By being able to go out to a house, wonder if you've gotten 4 bids and you liked a couple of the guys and you don't know me, you don't know anybody, and you're just kind of like, this is a little bit trying. And the money's so different. And they're doing different things. Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to look at, are they attacking why we're there? Are they chasing the symptom, or are we going after the bigger source, which is drought or rain? It's the combination of the two.
Right.
Positioning of the home, whatnot. So once we figure those things out, it's not so hard. But at the end of the day, these people don't know what to do. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know where to turn. So FRTC can then look at these menus and say, listen, what they're doing here, first, we will look at what they're doing and show them the fallacies or the good parts of what they have in front of them and what they might be missing. Wouldn't it be great to be able to put a scope of work out and put it out to them and say, hey, Paul, I want you to bid on 42 feet of drain tile. And here's the spec on how I want the drain tile put in, by the way, too. You don't get to do it your way. You have to put a fabric in. You've got to use River Rock. Simple things. Anyone can follow these rules. And if they can't, then you don't need to be, bidding it. So we'll get pushed back, but this is how we're going to start to get our industry knocked straight. It's like, well, you want this work. You're going to have to do it right. And we didn't make up the standard. Having a fabric in River Rock is very important that we don't contaminate the system that we're putting in. Having a radon-ready basin. Just because the industry didn't tell us to be mindful of radon, that's sin. We know it's bad in St. Louis. Why am I going to, unknowingly, having 2 parents that died of cancer, by the way, do that to somebody? Yet the industry does this. You got guys, I have guys tell, oh, I don't even know if that radon stuff's real. Yeah, and we didn't go to the moon.
Yeah.
Some people you can help. You know, that's what I've decided too, is I'm tired of leading horses to water that aren't walking. I'm not dragging a mule again. Not. I've had very good realtors recently, and I hope they watch this, that hurt my feelings terrible when they rather sold a house and they hurt the next person by leaving the bad thing there and not talking about it. When we had a really neat way to bridge that. These are big names in our town. These are names of people that sell gobs of houses. These are folks that you trust. Will I name them? No. But their client better not ever call me, because I won't lie for them either, and they know it. And I tell them. Heartbreaking, but at the end of the day, I'm not here. But I'm a bully eater. I'm a bit of a policeman, but at the end of the day, I'm a servant. And that's what all of us should be. So I'm not trying to start fights. I'm trying to end them. I'm trying to get people from being in financial turmoil. I'm trying to do everything. I'm striving. I hate the word try. It's so weak. I move forward. And if I get knocked back, that's actually a move forward, because you figured out what didn't work.
Yeah. Well, you're disrupting. The other part of this is you're disrupting a business model of taking advantage of people that are in fear, right? And because they don't understand what's going on, they got to get to, Chicago, they got to get their house sold, they got to do this. They're under pressure. And somebody comes in. I'll give you an example. When I was selling a home in Nebraska, I was selling it for a single lady moving for a new job. She was an IT tech, great position that she was offered. And there was a little dribble. This was a walkout basement, and there was a hairline crack in the wall underneath the window that they put in the sidewall. And I put my Stephen Burton glasses on and looked at that and said, okay, there's a little drizzle coming out of this wall. And they brought in a specialist from the buyer side. We're going to have to cut the foundation out all the way around, put in a sump pump, do this. It's going to be $6,000, okay, at that point, okay? This was 2013. And I said, darling, don't worry. Let me call somebody. Let's have them take a look at this and figure out what's going on. Well, what was happening outside that they didn't address was that walkout basement. As you know, that water running alongside the house had coved out, a little gully. And so the water was just right against that foundation as it's flying back towards the downhill area, right? So I said, really, let's look at this. If we build up the side and push the water away from the foundation, because number one, why did they even put a window in in this position? It's going to weaken the foundation right there when it's under, hydraulic pressure. And so we brought another guy in, $600 to do the landscape changes and run the spillway out further from the house. And she's like, really? That's all we have to do? And I presented that to the buyer's agent. They said, oh, that'll fix it? I go, yep. And boom.
So much better of a fix than injecting it too, because you've left your why there. That could have actually caused another break. So exactly.
Well, the issue would persist because you didn't go to the source, right?
That's right.
And
That's right. Yeah. In concrete's tensile strength's 10%, so it doesn't take much to break the PSI from the outside of the building. I mean, 48 gallons is enough pressure to break the wall. 48 gallons. That's a trash bag full of water. So we have to be careful. Yeah. And windows. Why do windows have cracks in them? Well, it's an interesting thing. When concrete's made out of all solids, right? Well, water turns to a vapor. So you fill this cup up all the way, and that water is going to come away. Well, that solid that was poured in with the water, now the water evaporates, so the concrete shrinks. That's why you get that beautiful little gap around the perimeter on the floor. That's why they'll put a piece of steel or a wire in the floor now and pull it out at the post so that it'll crack there perfectly and shrink nicely. So we're learning. We're doing some things better.
Yeah.
We're still putting steel in the walls and having steel go through it, and those are being affecting and growing rebar blow-ups, but I digress, so that
Sure.
there's always, but that window opening has more face to it, so it can let air out, it can dry faster. So that's why you wind up with that one off the corner.
Yep.
And most of the time, when we look at those windows, they're on the non-load bearing side of the house. So now what do I mean by that? Your floor joists, where they land, those are your main loads. I'm not to say that the beams going across, if there's more than one or one, that's your other load, and that's where it's sitting on the house. So a lot of times those windows don't have much of a load on them or anything. They shrunk, cracked. So it doesn't take much to break those walls, you know what I mean? So you want to keep the water off of those walls and let them right on by,
Yes,
So you did exactly right, but that's why windows have cracks in them, is they have a much more of a face. That's why we wind up seeing them off of windows.
That's good. That's good. And so, yeah. And the other thing that you taught me that is I saw you do a video the other day about the floor versus the wall and what's the load bearing component. And a structural engineer also shared it with me. It says, you can have, and I remember you talking about this, the floor can crack and, spall and do all kinds of stuff. You're not compromising the structure of your building, because that is a driveway poured in your basement. Okay?
I had somebody call it a carpet years ago, and I'm like, that's perfect. That's just heavy carpet.
It's just heavy carpet.
It can be dirt. We're fine. Go to the hill. There's still dirt holes. There's still houses in the 110 in Missouri, St. Louis.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make them bad houses, but those were cellars that they dug out and crawl spaces converted for a hot water heater and a furnace that turned. You've seen them?
Yeah.
So, that doesn't have no effect. Your load is the foundation and the footing.
Yes.
That's your foundation wall, and your footing is the foundation. So
And so those things, that's so good. Thank you. Because those simple principles, once you understand it, you're removing the drama. One of the things that I hear you throughout all this talk that we've had today is, you got to pull the drama out of it and really just go to the facts of what's happening and understand in a simple term, engineering wise, what's going on in here. Right. And so, because you could deceive the client easily because they don't understand what's going on. But if you give them the information, then they can make a wise decision based upon the options that you bring in front of them. They may not be great options as far as financial is concerned. I remember just the video you did. I don't know if it was the last week or so that you published. You walked around and said, I've got to cut this floor out and I've got to put a sump pump in. I have no other option. They put that little 45-degree lip in there on the corner. You just did that like this last week, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. But, the fact of the matter is that's not, that's not going to solve it. Like you said, you can't plug that seam. You have to deal with the overall issue of it. And so I love that. I love that. You take the drama out. You bring that in, and again, you're fighting. There's the other side of the house that's coming in and taking advantage of that client because of they're fearful. They don't understand what's going on. They've got to get moved. They got to do something. The water in the basement is a scary thing to most people, as it should be. I mean, it is a possible bad issue. And I love that book you just showed. That was the principles and that of the Foundation Rescue that you developed. That's so needed. I came out of the electrical industry, as you know, and I really thought that the NEC code, the National Electrical Code, knowing that I taught it, I memorized it, things, and I was an inspector for electrical. But I didn't understand something. When I went to the code development meetings, I began to understand how those things were brought together. It wasn't a Bible on how to wire a house. It was a consortium of vendors, engineers, and construction, or the electrical industry, if you will, the installers and the electricians, to come to a point where we could agree on something. This is going to improve the installation because there's all these factors. The manufacturer wants to sell you the latest and greatest thing
Right.
that they've developed, right? So let's do, everything's got to have this new fangled thing, and then you've got the engineers going, well, I've got to make it fit inside this box and make this work, and then you've got the construction and electrical guys going, I need enough space to put the conduit there and do all this. So there's a tension of creating that book, and every 3 years it changes. Every 3 years there's new things in the NEC.
To the electrical industry, in our industry, do you know how many areas there? And I'm so glad that we're bringing this up, because this is one of the big problems folks have, is the GFIC on their pump.
Right.
Wah,
Right.
wah, wah, wah,
Not a good
wah.
idea.
I know, and it's code, right? So
Yeah.
this is where we have to have the guts to be able to say, Emperor's naked, we're still working on it, and there's not an electrician that's going to argue with us, but we still have to go by what the rules are.
Right.
So that's what makes it difficult, and I think that's why the industry never stood up. Missouri doesn't have a code.
Right.
When I spoke with the president of Mace, and he was like, you have no idea how much we're going to embrace you. This is getting to be epidemic. We have enough good people who are saying, I'm tired of inspecting these houses, and what am I supposed to do? I walk in and I see the plates on the wall. I see the plastic. I see angle iron pinning the top of the wall. What am I supposed to do? They've just finished putting it in exactly like they said they were going to. So This is where I get a lot of, well, it works. As designed. I mean, we got to look at the design. Yeah, it's a fail of a work, but well, how adequately? You know what I mean? And so that's where I hear a lot of it works. Okay, well, compared to what? And we have to be delicate about this. You know how many times I have to go, and you watch my videos, how many times I walk up and I go, how do I tell them? Because I see brand new metal guards, not filters, not screens, full metal jackets, the devil, which is what I call them on a house, especially with something with a pitched roof. It's just horrible.
Oh, yes.
And I get in the house, the wall's pushed in. I'm like, well, it's your gutters. And they just look at me like I am just got 18 eyeballs. In fact, I started to buy a gutter company 15 years ago because I was giving about $500,000 a year away to them. The guys that I give it to will all say, oh, more than that. I don't clock it, but I just know based on my sales and how many houses I go to, what's happening. With that, I've developed a way of better to come alongside them. Hey, looks like you got some new gutters up there. If you ever get a roof accident or something happens to where you have an opportunity, let me show you a little bit of, and boy, it's a tough approach, but if you love somebody, you kind of you bring them up to speed the best you can. Now, I'm sure that there's people that are going to watch us going, well, he didn't have such a good bedside manner with me. I'm human. Sometimes it's harder than others, and some people are a little bit madder than others to find out.
Yes, that's right.
Usually it's one of the spouses, one of them's being nice, the other one's upset. So this is tough. The truth sometimes can be brutal. And so I've never looked at a house as a paycheck. I looked at it as an opportunity to help them. And if I was able to, then I was glad. And if I was just planting a seed, because a lot of times the person that says something that they actually act on never knows. I pray that I have people come up to me at some point going, one day you did this and then that. That would be wonderful to me. And I know that it'll happen. Because when you're doing the right thing, it comes out in the long run. You just stay the course. Knowing it's the truth and having done it this long, no one can knock me over. Remember when you were new at what you were doing and somebody opposed you, you just didn't have the confidence. You kind of knew what you were told to say, but it wasn't, in your heart, in your being. That's why when somebody says something that's a lie right now, I might smile and say, well, I think that way too. I got black pipe going into my concrete at my own house. You're right. You know what I mean? I do.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. So we learn. And when you're in the industry and you're doing it wrong, it's kind of an interesting place to be because you're gonna go by the things you're saying, or is it just all fake? You know what I mean? I had to learn. I had to show it. Had to talk about it. But that's what makes you better, right? Anyone that's made it to where they have 20 10, 20, 30 years in an industry, that's somebody, and they're still acting like they're new and they're going for it. That's who you want to be next to. You want to be next to somebody that's constantly improving their golf game. You want to be somebody that's just going for it in areas that you're not, so that it keeps that fresh in your mind that we don't know everything. And even though we may even feel popular, we don't know anybody compared to who we could know based on the gift of getting to know them for the right reasons. So what do? We do podcasts, because marching out and spending a bunch of money on media, which I do a little of that, is you have to be very careful with that, and you better be able to use those for tools. You weren't afraid to go in front of the masses and say it because it's the truth. But I'm not Coca-Cola. I can't just boom, brand. And a lot of times with that comes a lot of things that aren't necessary because you've got such a good brand. So we want to make sure that whatever we're doing just stands up the test of time and that it benefits others, because then you get a gift, they're completely happy, and you get to keep doing what you do and what you love. So
I love that.
if you're
I
wanting
love
to
that.
sit
Yeah.
still, let's figure out how to keep you sitting still. If you're wanting to make sure you can sell, let's make sure that we get you to where you can sell. If you're getting ready to buy it and you don't know what you're buying, let's help you figure out how to buy it. If you're hiring somebody and you're hiring a bunch of it and you don't know how to hire them, let's help you hire them. Let's just help. Let's just do it affordably. For $175, I think I've actually made people mad because no one does foundation inspections, and I am. I do a full building envelope for them. I don't get involved with utensils, appliances, and heat. No. I'm there for the big picture, the structure, and what can affect it. And I've been told I'm too cheap. I've been told that I'm blanking the market. Well, I don't see any market. I don't see anybody doing. In fact, Ashley's been told not to speak on the foundations, that get a specialist.
Right.
So where's your specialist? Well, you're going to call a contractor. Even myself, when I owned Waterproof Solutions, I'm jaded. So we have to be careful. I'm a jaded teacher. I say that. Now, guys, something's not right. Make sure you present it to me with the math. Now, the third time you present it to me and you don't present it the right way, I'm whapping your head off and using you as an example of proprietary push. You know, it's the reason I like helping politics, but boy, to get into it, I would hate to have somebody that would have paid for my way to get to something, and now I got to do that. And the guys that I back in politics don't do that. They're all clean. Talk about when that's been put to them. But, you know, why would I even talk about politics? Well, quite frankly, in this stage in the game, I need everybody to take a look at what we're doing and be able to acknowledge that it's for the better good. We're not We're not a non-for-profit. No. But we're also we're not unaffordable. To have a complete 16-week career put to you for $7,000 that you'll get that money back in the blink of an eye, you tell me where you can learn a career. I'll sign right up to learn it. You'd be a better homeowner taking these classes. You'd be a better buyer's agent. You'd be a better, these small businesses, you'd have a better construction company. You'd have a better, there's so many applications for this because of the knowledge. It'll never not be necessary. I've had the blessing of working in radio. I've worked for Fox Television. I've worked for WR. I've worked in so many industries, and what I did is I chewed them up, did really well, spit them out, and went on to something else. And the people in this world now are really doing that, where my father, no. He worked at McDonnell Douglas till it killed him. I mean, I say that. He died of cancer and he didn't smoke, but he spray painted.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so we're not throwing rocks, just saying. So at the end of the day, what is this life about? What are we doing? And I love the fact that I'm enlightened to that, and that we can help people figure things out. It's so fun. It's so exhilarating to get to the end of an inspection and having the people go, I so appreciate you. That was so informative. You're so nice. And I'm not nice, but I'm nice I shouldn't say it about myself, but people say I'm nice. I'm like, wow. Hardly concerned. In fact, I had somebody the other day say, Stephen, you're not mean, you're hard. I liked hard better. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
You know, it's the jaded part of me, you know, when you see how aggressive people are to the sheep, to the lambs. I'm a shepherd. I can't. I can't.
That's
And
where
they
you
hear
nailed
my
it right
voice
there.
when I
You
say
said,
something true.
yep.
They know it's true because it's not me. It's the truth. It's the light. It's bigger. So if we can continue to strive for treating people with respect, understanding what they need, and sometimes what they want they can't have. We have to show them that's not on the plate. That's not on the table. It's not the salt and pepper shaker. We can't do that. And here's why. Because you can't help everybody if they're going to be bent on an idea that's not fruitful. But most of the time, there's a way out. And there's a super... We had a lady the other day, we told her to sell the house. It was too far.
Too far
Very
gone.
rare that happens.
Wow.
If you'll notice the video I did the other day where I'm talking about where the daylight was coming through the wall, there's a storm sewer that was put through the whole back of that subdivision. All those homes are going right down the hill, and the more we looked at it, the more we thought this is going to bury these people. They're in their late 70s, and they've been hosed. So the house is going to go up for sale. And every house on the street has the same problem, and it's in a really good zip code. It's a bummer. So
it's like living on the in
yeah.
California.
So what do we do? Do we go with waterproof solutions? And Steve went over with me. We went over because I like to try and give. Say, you need help. Let's give them the best help we can. And when we got to the end of it, we were like, we've put all the numbers to it. And the numbers are pretty big, and we don't feel like that's a good idea to you. Now, how many times do you see a team of contractors get together and tell the homeowner, bless your heart, but this isn't your way. The repairs are so high, even at a lower level, if we got really good prices, because we hadn't got to the deck yet. So it was one thing to attack and chase the things that we could do to give that foundation its new life. But economically, that wasn't going to work for them in that situation. And they only had so much money left in their world, which wasn't very much. I certainly wouldn't want to be a part of taking that from them when they could figure it, you know what I mean? So it was best that we politely said to them, let's get you the people that buy these houses and let's start interviewing them and seeing if we can't fight for your best. And she cried and said thank you to Steve and I and the husband, and they were so grateful. And I walked away from that feeling as better or as good as anything I finished that I fixed. Now, I didn't have a lot of satisfaction in the sense that she's been in such a bad place, but that's not for me to judge or to be involved with. I just have to do my part. But when you're with good people, like when I send a roofing company or a gutter person, or I send a flat work person, or I send a siding window person, and I have such great people, I'm excited to send them. I'm not, I hope they call them. I hope they follow up. And when I do get a call I haven't heard from them, I'm like, oh. See, I'm kind of jealous like that. I like to be special. If I'm giving work out, I want you to call them right when I sent you the text, not, I was going to get with them tonight. Yeah, well, I'm too impatient.
Well,
and it's needing that, it wasn't that hard to just give me a hit back. You know what I mean? So
and I don't know if you remember, but that's the way I operate too. It's like I would say, Steve, here's Susie Q, and she's in crisis, and when can you meet me? Could we meet at 4 a.m. tomorrow, or could we meet whenever you got a moment? Let's go do this, because this has got to be done. And we're near the end of our 7-day inspection period, or whatever the heck's going on, and that kind of thing. And that was one thing you brought up earlier that I really wanted to mention is, you do this in a similar to myself. I say, I don't mind if you don't buy a realtor. I don't mind if you don't buy this house. I want to make sure you just know what's going on, and then you make the decision, because I don't have to live here. You have to live here, right? And the situation you talked about with the sewer line going through there, that's really like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. This ship is going down. Do you want to be on it when it's going down, right? I mean, really, that's what it amounts to. And well, Steve, this is awesome. I would like a couple of things before we close out here. We got about 5 minutes left, and I'd love to have you walk through a little bit. Maybe can you give an overview of the Foundation Rescue curriculum? Like the different sections maybe, and then bring us to the point where you give us your contact information so those that are watching can get a hold of you and get this training, because we need to get them in this training. Okay.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I got to tell you, we were going to try and do it in September, but I felt, and Gabby, my director, she said, Stephen, we are rushing something that we wanted to be better. All of a sudden, we had all of these people, thank you, by the way, all of these people, we want contributors to come in on the class. So we started having doctors, professionals, inspectors, city administrators, fire chiefs saying, yeah, we'll come in and speak. So the class is 16 weeks, right? 7 of the weeks are in person. So these folks can do this online. They can do it while they're working. So the first week, as I put this up in front, and we'll give you some of these for later, but at the end of the day, we have 16 weeks. The first week is introduction, attitude and stewardship. First thing we want them to understand is that you're only as good as your attitude, and you and I both know that, and we have to work on that daily. So when we're having a problem, let's go to that core and let's start using our skill set to be good, healthy people mentally. This way, when we're digging a ditch by ourselves and we're hurting and our back hurts and our hands hurt, we know why we're doing it, and that won't always be if that's the case with a worker. You might be an owner, but you need to understand how that worker's feeling as he's doing what he's doing, and he needs to understand that that is a process of a peer. That is a process of a system. That's not just digging a hole or breaking some concrete. And there's a right way to do that too. So attitude, insurance, how do you insure yourself? Make sure if your customer or your boss pays you cash, know how to do your taxes. So we want them to be whole people. I kind of want to be a father. I want to be a grandfather to them in the sense that I'm going to say all the things that they should have said and done with you. And if they didn't, God bless them, we're going to do it now. The Air Force did that with me. In 6 weeks, I can remember him telling us, hey, girls, whatever your folks haven't done in the last 6 weeks, we're going to do it. They weren't kidding.
Buckle up.
Week 2 is Water 101 and Foundation. Week 3 is Soil Wars. I have a map of 1904 of St. Louis that shows every part of the soils everywhere in our whole area. All the caves. It's wonderfully interesting. And to know your town that well makes you a better citizen, I think. So hydrology and humanity. We need to understand what is hydrology, and how is that going to affect our client. We can't get diving into the why. The person, let's make sure as we're designing, we have them in mind. If we've got a 90-year-old person that's got an issue with water coming in the corner, we get outside, we can see that if we stick 2 black pipes this is the only time you use black pipe, by the way.
Yes.
And you've got outside, you got solid, and you can throw it out 20 feet away from the house and it doesn't leak. That's what you do there, right? So let's understand who we're doing it for before we start designing. So know thy foundation. So the reality of it is we've got stone, we got block, we've got poured, cast in place, and we got brick. We can talk about wood, but it's easy. Basements, cellars, and crawl spaces. I can't even speak to that right now. It's so much to talk about. Diagnostics. This is where they actually get a tool where they'll be able to diagnose the house, and they'll have a calculator that they'll be able to go, all right, based on what I've learned in my class, this job will cost between $11,000 and $13,000 based on a high-low area if I've caught the symptoms right based on what I've learned in my classes. Very valuable to have on your phone if you're a buyer's agent. You're sitting there going, what? If it's going to need drain tile for this house, it's 120 feet. All right, if it's going to be, and he said that, very, very helpful if you're trying to do something quickly with your client. Concrete and commitment, we need to understand how concrete works and where we're going to place it and how we're going to deal with it. Foundations under fire, this is where we start to see the cause and effect of what's happening because of the property. Lab week is where I have them in. They start playing with urethanes, epoxies, concrete. I have them make bad concrete. I have them make good concrete. I have them break concrete. I have them saw concrete. I have them eat concrete. I have them sleep concrete to where they know that building block better than most people. They understand that cement is an ingredient. It isn't cement in its entirety. I want to make sure that we're well-rounded people. So then we have guest speakers in week 11 to where I have folks like yourself come in and speak to their heart as to why it's so important that they do what they do with integrity. And when no one's looking, because the houses that these kids are going to be working on and men are going to be working on are houses that were ruined by or hurt by another company. Those are the ones we're going to pull for the class for free. We will fix homes for people. We should have them lining up when we go to a town saying, pick us, pick us.
Yes.
This way, the gentlemen and ladies get a feel for what it's like to truly be a gift giver and to see how despicable it is to have done that to someone. Fake injections, I run into them all the time. Open the floor up, no pier. Pier's not on it. Braces, you name it, I've seen it. It's because there's no checks and balances.
Right.
There's a lack of accountability. So capstones, when we rescue a house, I have them for a week. We go in, we have work set up. They get to feel the satisfaction of, wow. After we do capstone, we do the human element. Now I dive into angiogram, disc training. We're going to start really talking about the person because now you've got a good feeling about what you're doing, fixing. Let me remind you who you're doing it for again. Not for yourself.
Right.
Not for the house.
Right.
Not for your paycheck. Those things are still in front of you. You're still very simply minded. Building the advocate, week 14. This is very important because now we start to talk to them about how their network is important. How they're only as strong as all the other people that they have, like you and I have each other. We're only as good as each other. So we need as strong people to be in our network. After that, we get into estimating and scoping. Now I give you now you're going to have everything. Now you're going to know where all the bodies are buried, the big picture. With that comes responsibility, and they have to take a Hippocratic and a fiduciary oath on graduation week because now we're doing job placement. I've already started talking about people. We're going to put them either in work, in business, or with someone. And there will be a winning team. Not everybody gets a trophy, and there will be someone that stands out amongst them all who was the best. And that's what we're doing for the industry. And for the homeowner, again, we're doing $175 inspections that gives them full drawings, full ideas to how to move forward, what to do, who to do it with. And if they need extra help after that, we can always talk about it. So boots on the ground, and the folks that are already living in the situation that they're in. That's what we're about.
That's awesome. So if people want to get a hold of you, Stephen, what's the best way for them to do that? I know there's been so much great content here. People are going to want to go, I want to meet this guy. I want to take this class. How can they get a hold of you to get started?
I love that. So foundationrescuestl.com. That's how you can get right in and you can check the website out and take a look. We have a toll-free number, 636-246-4443. That's a line to my AI receptionist, Samantha. We're working on her. It's important that we use some of the technology out there. People get kind of nervous about that, and I just want to be upfront about it. I can't afford to answer 150 phones at the same time, and I can't afford to pay to have it answered 24/7 unless it's AI. Right? So I really want, if someone's sitting around and it's raining, it's 2 a.m, and they're like lightning storms last night, and they're sick about it. They want to be able to go to bed. That might be just the things for them to call in and go, you know what, I'm going to have Foundation Rescue come out here and figure out what we need to do. Or I'm getting ready to buy this house and I've been sick about it and I know they'll come in 48 hours. I'm going to call them and I'm going to register them to get me to help me with my situation because I'm starting to panic. So that's why I'm using AI. I have to use the technology that's available to me. But no one's ever going to be better than Gabby. My director is rock star. So we always want to talk to a human when we can, but at least this way they can get some chance and I get a text immediately once they've said it. And so if it's urgent, say it's urgent. I'll get back. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Stephen, thanks for being with us on the podcast today. Always a pleasure. We'll have to do this again soon. I would love to explore some of the other ideas and thoughts that we had on this. Thanks for being with us, Stephen. Have a great week.
I couldn't appreciate you more, and I have to say the public thanks you too, because every time somebody finds me, they're generally grateful, and that's not me, and that's not you, that's our Lord, so we should be grateful for that. Thank you.
Amen. I love that. See you next time.
Take care, bro.